Doesn't it sound like Badmouth just ignores the words of people of color as soon as they stop aligning with whatever preconceived biases he has? When Malcolm X leaves the org that later ends up killing him? Oh, well, invalid, even though those are the last things that he believed, so he would have had time to reflect on all the stuff he believed beforehand. Baldwin's entire life is dedicated to fighting against the ideas that Badmouth believes in. Oh, well, nah, that doesn't count, actually. Are you going to go over the Badmouth follow-up vid? It's so good. Wait, there's a Badmouth follow-up vid? Wait, how bad is it? It's unwatchable? Wait, what makes this so unwatchable?
I'm going to review some of the responses to the last video about Vaush and go over some of the stuff that was cut from the original. I didn't...
Oh, by the way, I was, like, very drunk when I first watched this, so I'm not going to lie. I remember about 1/3 of the original video, even though I saw it, like, 5 days ago. So, yeah.
I didn't think I'd have to go over this, but just to clarify 2 main points, you can't really be racist towards whites. That's not really a thing, at least here in the West. Racism as it stands is really about power. This is precisely the reason why when Ian says that there might be systemic differences, but even if you take all that away, the end result is still the same. It's not the same.
Now, I know the difference there. It's that trans people are systemically oppressed and white people really aren't. But even if you take away the systemic oppression element, you still have the exclusionary.
You can't take away the systemic oppression element.
I mean,
if my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike. You know what? You know. You know what the hell is? You know, it doesn't make any sense.
Different things are different. Different things are different.
I can have people yell.
Right. Anyway, I don't know. Right. Yeah. Okay, so I've gone over this before, but I'll say it again. Okay, we'll say it just in case anyone doesn't understand fully or disagrees. This is so dumb. Okay, so there's this effort to say that racism equals prejudice plus power, which is something that I used to repeat as well, and that without systemic oppression or power, racism is just prejudice. So black people can be prejudiced against white people, but they can't be racist. I think this is really, really dumb because essentially all it does is transpose the logic that I use, except it uses terminology that is less accurate and less applicable. The real difference is between racism and systemic racism. Racism can be employed against any group by any group. And systemic racism is when that racism is reinforced by or reinforces some broader social narrative. And obviously there are blurry lines there, but if a black person's racist against a white person, like, it sucks and it's not good, but it doesn't really contribute to like this huge like social pressure on white people by black people. Whereas if the reverse takes place, then obviously, of course, we have centuries and centuries of history of racism against black people from white people in America, not just being interpersonal, but also, well, it goes a little further than that, doesn't it? So anyway, I think that's a perfectly defensible argument. We're literally talking about the terminology being used. And the issue that I have is that I feel like by using the term prejudice rather than racism, when we're talking about racial prejudice, you know, being enacted against white people, groups like I almost said Bad Empanada, but I guess him too. Badmouth Productions, they're essentially doing it to, they're anti-white. They're doing it because they want to delegitimize any accusations that they might be racially biased. I don't think everyone who pushes the racism equals prejudice plus power thing is anti-white, not even close. But I do think that when it's done in this way, it's usually being done because that way you can sort of smarmily go, you know, oh, that's not racism when we're racist against white people. You know what I mean? It's very silly to me. Racism, systemic racism. Phenomenal difference between these two things, but both are bad. So we should keep that in mind.
Yelling racist chants towards me. You Yorkie. You honky piece of shit. You.
Oh no.
You Peckerwood Oaky trash hole, you lime nose, porridge eating Anglo, you.
This comes off as a little pick me, doesn't it? Hey guys, I'm white. I'm not offended. Guys. Hey guys.
You whitey, white, cracker mouth, white. Okay, look, I'm still going to be more favorably viewed on job descriptions. I've still got a country that teaches my history in schools. I'm still far less likely to go to prison or be stopped and searched. That's the reality of oppression. Secondly, nation isn't just a synonym.
Wait, why did he just follow that up by pointing out the difference between racism and systemic racism, when that's a difference that I've always... He's like, well, when racism is done against white people, it's not systemic. Damn, dude, that's crazy.
For country, in the way that people like Marx used it, the historical way, the historical definition of the word, nation refers to a people in an area with a shared identity, culture, heritage, language, etc. So, Basque Nation, Navajo Nation, these are specific people groups. I think the crux of all this is, and the thing that I'm really trying to get at, is that a lot of the time folks can feel as though they're really doing good. They're really adamant that they're doing good for people, when in reality, they're actually being very inconsiderate and naive without noticing. As an example from my life, I was once talking to my self-proclaimed centrist friend about feminism. And by the end of it, he said something along the lines of, you know what, you're right. And I guess it's up to us as men to give women a helping hand. Now, at the time, I went along with that. But the more I've really thought about it, it's actually very reductive. I know that over the past few years...
Doesn't race, not exist sociologically? You've got it mixed up. Race only exists sociologically. Race doesn't exist biologically. But as a social concept, yeah, race is very, very real. Talking about actual, genealogy, not so much.
Years we've all tried to sort of combat toxic maleness by saying, this isn't feminism, this is feminism. But I think we've reached a point now where we have to actually start saying, yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than just that.
What are we...
And when you're saying, lending helping hand...
What are we talking about?
What you're actually saying, it's coming from the presumed subtext that you are the one who's going to be doing all the heavy lifting, that you intend to take charge, as it were. If you ask me, with the history of feminism and all that, the actual way I personally think about helping is largely one of stepping out of the way. You might think that's regressive, or that's segregational,
what? Okay, this is just a video editing tick, but if you're going to go on a long rant about something like this that's totally tangential, you should probably, before doing that, provide something that ties it to what I've said if you're responding to me. If this is just some sideline tangent, I guess that's fine. Maybe this is like avant-garde YouTube video essay construction.
It's splitting the working class apart, but women are at a lesser point in society, and you have to, allow more space by removing some of yours. Otherwise, it's very akin to the white man must liberate the slaves.
So this is a thing that I believed when I was younger and a little bit stupider. But in reality, the whole what privileged people need to do is move aside thing is actually an incredibly reductive, simplistic, and ineffective way of dealing with any kind of major civil rights issue. What you actually need is people with privilege to use their privilege to amplify the needs of that group. That's the thing you really, really need. If men just stepped out of the way to allow women... What do you think that means for you exactly? Are you a big business executive in Hollywood? Are you a Fortune 500 CEO? Where are you stepping out of? Are you leaving space on YouTube for a female, bad, tanky YouTuber? What... The stepping out of the way thing really doesn't mean anything. It's just kind of a fancy aphorism that people like to say before jerking themselves off to the thought of how woke they are. What you should actually do is actively and aggressively advocate for moral and policy positions that you think benefit groups who are unfairly maligned. That's really the best that you can do. Now, of course, you should listen. But listening is not the same thing as blindly accepting dogma either. I've heard plenty of trans people with really bad takes on trans issues. I've debated a few of them too. Likewise for any minority group about their own minority group. People are people, and some people have bad takes, no matter where they come from or what they do. So I like how people in chat said Gammy before Blair White. It's very impressive to me how much ire Gammy has drawn, in spite of the fact that Blair White is very obviously the person that I was referring to there. But that is funny. Either way, this really does all further play into my my belief that this is like pick me shit right here. Doesn't this feel like that a little bit? You know, woker than thou. Look at me, I can take mean words for white people. Look at I believe in stepping out of the way. Well, how are you doing that exactly? I step out of the way for no one. I'll step into other people's spaces to tell them that they're wrong in the way they advocate for their rights. Absolutely, I will. I love that's my favorite thing to do. Absolutely. I've done that shit with give me a group of black separatists, okay? I will be the loudest motherfucker. You have not seen manspreading like what I am about to do on the bus full of misandrist women advocating for women's rights, okay? You will not believe, okay? It's like I'll be doing the splits. My feet will be pointed out in opposite directions so hard that if I spun, it would kick up a fucking tornado inside of the space, okay? Absolutely I will. And you know what? It'll be a good thing.
The enslaver must free the enslaved. It's just coming from this man's burden trope. It's not actually...
Also, white people did free the slaves in America. That did happen. That is what happened. Would you have just stepped out of the way back during slavery? How would that have worked exactly? Well, as a real abolitionist, I think it's my job to step out of the way and allow this fight to be taken by black... Oh, really? Oh. Well, I'm sure they would really appreciate that. John Brown, you're taking up a lot of space, sweaty. Yeah, it's just... there are a lot of people who are under the impression that allowing privileged people to take a role in liberation for non-privileged people is somehow like an insult, or it's just not. It's good, actually. It's actually good for as many people as possible to help free slaves, regardless of their race, you know? It's not all white people, of course. You know, tens of thousands of black volunteers, and Lord knows there were plenty of slave revolts, and slaves would join the Union Army, and just a lot of shit like that, you know? It's great. Maybe we should all work together on that.
Actually helping. That's called wanting to be a martyr. And at first, of course, it's very annoying.
What?
You know, you've been told your entire life in the media that it's your job as a dude to change the world. And now, even though you've become left and you're like, yeah, I know it all now, I'm a feminist, blah, 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 only to be told, well, no, I think you got a bit more work to do. Of course it's frustrating.
What does this
It's always
have to do
frustrating
with...
being wrong. But that doesn't mean that your annoyance is valid. Chris Hedges actually spoke about that. I don't really care what you think about Chris Hedges. It's the point that matters. He called this accepting the blindness. And when you do that, when you accept that blindness, you can then actually...
Fuck, he did this in the first video too. He projected really fucking hard. He was like, I know what it's like to feel insecure after minority groups tell you you're not woke enough. I used to get really angry when POC would tell me that I was racist, and I steamed on it for days and days and days. But eventually I realized that I was wrong, and now I've shut up. Well, don't project your issues onto me. I'm not going to shut up. Jesus.
Actually go on to help people in a genuine, real manner that actually makes proper change. On this same point, I'm all for internationalism. Let me make that clear, but you can't just get to internationalism by just proclaiming it.
I don't know what
because
we're
it's very
talking
much,
about.
we should work towards internationalism, and I'll be the one at the front.
What?
Okay, that's how it comes across. Oh, how could I possibly be supporting chauvinism if I oppose chauvinism?
What does this have
that
to
makes
do
me
with
the
me?
goodest
What?
boy.
You have
it's
to
much harder
insert
for someone who is
quotes
higher up
of
the pecking
mine.
order to really empathize with those who are lower. Those who are being pecked know what it feels like on a daily basis. People who are more privileged don't have that constant feedback loop, and we engage in unnoticed aggressions and beliefs of grandeur.
You have to
the
put
world's
in
biggest
quotes.
gambit.
What does this have
Again,
to
you
do
might not
with
think
me?
you're saying that, but that's how it comes across. That's the text.
Are you sure this isn't Sargon just attacking from another persona? Oh god. We can't tell the fucking British voices apart. It's like from some fucking Naruto shadow clone jutsu of Sargons all over YouTube. The ANCAP Sargon, the TANKIE Sargon, you know, the lib left Sargon, the turf Sargon, all fucking martial artsing at me in unison.
That's the end result of this. Actual problem solving requires letting go of your ego, letting go of your fire hose, so to speak, and letting someone else have a go. And just an added point, that friend that I told you about, it would appear, based on what I told you, that he'd come around, right? He hadn't. He just said that to give off the impression of change. In reality, further on a few days more later in life, he would say stuff like, oh, women are crazy, aren't they? You know, he just continued his very misogynistic, passive-aggressive jabs whenever a woman dared to have an opinion. It's one of the reasons why I don't trust Ian whenever he claims, you know, to have learned these things, because he gives off that same exact...
Wait, hold on. I think my name just got mentioned for the first time in like 3 minutes.
Don't trust Ian whenever he claims, you know, to have learned these things, because he gives off that same exact narcissistic energy that friend...
You shouldn't trust me, because I've actually never learned anything. I've yet to meet a single other person who ever possessed even a mote of knowledge I didn't already possess. Sorry, you're right, you shouldn't trust me. I am lying. I say it to make other people feel better. I actually knew everything. Thank you.
Had. Just learning how to hide it a bit better for next time. The topic of South Africa is
like, what is he even saying that I moved over? The only thing that I've changed my mind on with regards to this whole issue was just, oh, Black nationalism doesn't mean the opposite version of white nationalism. Black separatism means the opposite version of white nationalism. And black nationalism means some other stuff. That's the only thing that I've learned, and that was like 1.5 years ago. I mean, I guess.
One that I left out of the original video, but it's a very interesting one. In America, people might be able to worm their way out of responsibility by saying, oh, you know, I was Irish, I'm Italian, I wasn't a WASP, whatever. But in South Africa, there's really no excuse. The land was literally trampled on by whites and enforced much harder than any Jim Crow. Somewhere around 70 to 80% of the land is held by whites, who make up literally less than 10% of the population. They still maintain the power over that land. So if I went up and said, well, not me, but if someone went up and said, we are poor, because you have all the power over the land, the white man would really not have any excuse. No?
Well, it really depends on the white man, doesn't it? Because if you walk up to some random, like, 16-year-old white kid... Well, again, there are, like, 6 million white people in South Africa. Do you think that every single one of them is arm in arm, like, locked in, deliberately reinforced? Like, again, this is the racial essentialism thing, once again. Guys, I hate to do this comparison over and over and over again, but this is literally the shit. This is literally the shit Nazis do with the JQ here in America. Dude, look at this. Look at all these powerful corporate and political positions. Dude, don't you know? Dude, look at that. Dude. You think this is like, you know what they're doing, dude? It's like, no, actually, I don't. I don't actually know what they're doing. I think there are big differences between how different groups of people achieve and hold power, and I'd be willing to bet that a majority of white South Africans are probably pretty fucking reactionary. But I don't think that means that all of them are equivalent to historical colonizers. Remember in the previous video when Bad Mouse asked, like, but how can we tell if they're colonizers, while showing a video of British soldiers gunning down native Africans? Again, I can tell. When you're wearing the red outfit with the little white cross and, like, the hat, and you have the rifle and you're shooting, yes, then I can tell. But if I just, hold on. Let me just try to illustrate my point a little bit with a, here's Johannesburg, okay? It's some young people dancing. Can you point out the colonizers? Can you point them out for me, would you? What's your opinion on mixed race people? Where do they settle, you know? I guess it really depends on who the mother was, right? Which family they're born into? Are they fully black? They're probably a little bit of Dutch in them. I don't know. Nah. Like, the point, like, this is a meaningless exercise. If you have an issue with power relations in South Africa, you don't fix that by saying all the white people there are colonizers. You fix it by targeting the specific systems that reinforce differences in power along racial lines. And you break those down. But you can't... you can't, if you essentialize that process, you're engaging in the same mistake that, like, every single ethnic cleansing sort of follows through into. How many mixed race people are in South Africa? I'm guessing a lot. Yeah, hold on. South Africa, how many mixed race? Would there be that many? Because they've had apartheid for so long. About 2.8 million mixed race people in South Africa. That's a pretty large number of people. I mean, I don't know, you know, where are they? I just don't feel comfortable trying to draw, like, racial boundaries on who's a colonizer or not. it's just that makes me very uncomfortable, and I don't know if that would fix anything. Not to mention, guys, if you've ever like looked at history to see what happens after these sort of like power grabs, or like when you deport an entire ethnic group, which is again ethnic cleansing, do you think that would fix the problem for most South Africans, or do you just think there would be a new ruling elite caste of black South Africans that would fill the same power vacuum because race was only ever, you know, um, co-aligned with the issue, but not the issue itself? The real issue is power, of course, but if you just think that you can exile a okay, actually, here's my take, and I'll finish it on this, okay? Bad Mouse is a lib, because saying that if you just get rid of the white people in South Africa, that would make things better, is like saying that if you could just, like, have the drone pilots being piloted by, like, trans women, that it would fix our foreign policy issues, you know? That's my hot take, okay? Like, oh, dude, we just, if we have all these superstructures that encourage inequality, if we just have the black people in those systems that encourage inequality, at least it would be intra-racial discrimination, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, no, I only have it because my father had it. I shouldn't be held responsible.
Wait, hold on. Seriously, Vaush, there are massively segregated areas in South Africa still? I have no idea what you think that has to do with my point. I'm actually baffled that you could possibly believe that has anything to do with what I said. There are here in America, you know?
Inspector Ghoul. Well, why does he have it? Okay, this is in literal living memory. This isn't something that happened 150 years ago. It's literally less than 30 years ago. How else can it be? It was enforced through racism. So in order for that wrong to be undone, it has to be decolonized. That requires taking the land, giving the power and autonomy back to black people. Otherwise, in this, communistic South African utopia, there will be enormous oversight by white people who've experienced decades of top pecking order privilege. What do I really mean when I say oversight? Well, it might be...
Couldn't that just be an economic thing? If the problem is that white people have first of all, the majority of the land you're referring to is not owned by all the white South Africans. It's probably owned by like the top 1% of white South Africans. Couldn't we just seize land based on like economic divides? That way we wouldn't have to like deport anyone or do any genocides. We could just assign economic reallocation, which would invariably address like the huge, like the vast majority of white South Africans are not participatory in this huge economic disparity through the enforcement of some direct policy they have control over. They just happen to be born in the neighborhood that had more money, you know? As were you, Bad Mouse. British person. No, this isn't class reductionism. Racism needs to be tackled too. But you probably shouldn't deport 6 million white people. That would be bad, you know? That would kind of suck a little bit, I think, in my opinion.
Difficult for you to understand if you don't live outside of America, but a lot of people have this highly Americanized outlook on things. It's not, necessarily that Ian supports exceptionalism or anything, but he still definitely harbors that certain integral American-centric outlook. I remember when he was so avidly defending, this vote blue no matter who, he was literally saying stuff like, stop talking about American politics when you don't even live here. You don't get to speak for issues that don't affect you. And I was like, wow. America, you are not Vietnam or Costa Rica. You are the single most powerful country for nearly 100 years.
It's funny that he's saying this when the people I was arguing with were the ones enabling the idea that Trump should get another term because they were too edgy and cool to say that Biden would be preferable to Trump. This photo that you're representing America with right here is much more representative of the Republican platform, both domestically and foreign, than the Democrat platform, that's for sure. Though this does look more like Biden than Trump, so I guess that's 50-50, right? This is about Sean. Yeah, Sean was getting called out from a lot of people about this too. Sean's like horrible takes on Twitter. The funny thing is that Sean on Twitter was a Bernie or Buster. He was a cunt about it too. He was like, well, I'm not voting anyway, am I? Because I'm British, aren't I? But then he made a YouTube video after Biden won about how bad it would have been if Trump could have continued his patriotic education policies if he had gotten a second term. And it's like, well, thank you, Sean. I agree. it would have been really fucking bad if he could have gotten to do that and educate an entire generation of young Americans using even more propagandistic information than what we do now. Thank you. I agree. Thank you very much. You're welcome, by the way.
The world answers to you. The world is changed by you. You are not some little nation somewhere with a unique identity that bigger nations like to fetishize and demonize. You are the identity of the world. So when you scold
like this guy's pretty
people
America-centric.
for talking about American issues, even though they live outside, this is the kind of centric thinking I'm talking about. You're literally number one, and yet you act like you're just any other country. Now think about that's the Americanized part of your identity. Think about how the white part of your identity might overlook the experiences of BME people. And of course, yes, before anyone says anything, there are some people who go too far with this and just make another dogma out of it. You know, festering their opinion in America, not based on its history, but just on the fact that it is America. And then,
ah, come on, man. You can't talk down on Max Blumenthal. Two birds of the same feather. Are you really... If I got you two in a room, would you really disagree on that much? Come on, man. I'd love to see these guys talk. I would love to see like tanky types argue with gray zone types. That's the fraction, you know, that's the fracturing that I want to see. All right, what we're doing?
End up just hating or liking something based on America's stance. And that's just a really flawed outlook. You are not going to just use that as a cover to ignore the true reality of American chauvinism. That is very much a current in leftist circles as well.
Are we doing that?
Just in case anyone's, wondering, I think the same for Britain as well. Okay, we like to hide ourselves by saying, oh, America's worse and all that, but the reality is, we're pretty much just as bad. We're just, runner-up.
I think it's very psychologically interesting how consistently he's interested in apologizing. You know what I mean? Like, nothing about this video is about, it's always this, like, apologism implicit. Like, he's very, very afraid of being called out, I think, for being reactionary or not woke enough or whatever. It's very strange.
Just on a similar topic, yeah, Welsh independence, go for it. All right, if that's what you want, if that's what you people want, go for it. The old thing about, the Welsh-English Union is that, yes, it is a union.
I don't care about the Welsh. I don't care about
one. Very on topic, eh? I don't really know too much about the Cornish. I would have figured as far as homogeneity went, they're basically English at this point. But I'm happy to be proved wrong.
Obviously,
let me reiterate, you could have a debate about reactionary practices within your group or your movement. Okay,
why are you responding to
but you
YouTube
first and foremost
comments?
have to have that baseline that each nation has its own right to self-determination.
They're YouTube
That's your
comments.
starting point. Then you can go further into it. Nobody's going to cancel you for criticizing aspects of Plaid Cymru or the SNP. Just stop having a crass take on that fundamental point. I noticed that some people were a little bit confused about the tribe analogy.
Stop!
It's explaining basically why we can say North Americans sleep on stolen land, but British people do not. In the land back discussion, some like to bring up, as Ian partly did, well, all people fought against one another in the past. American Indians fought against one another. They enslaved each other. What do we do? Do we just go back to the very first people and then give them the land? How are we?
So here's a question, guys. Do you think that he has an answer to this question? I like that he's throwing up the Stone Toss comic to associate me with a Nazi, but in unironic Stone Toss, well, he's associating me with Stone Toss, as if the only person who could point out that the whole, like, this land was stolen argument could sort of cyclically recede back an infinite number of tribes until eventually you land up at, like, primordial humans clubbing each other with rocks. But let's see if he has an answer. Let's go.
Going to do that? Why don't we just give reparations to the Babylonians? And that's true. It wasn't just all peaceful, it was violent. I'm very sure it was. We can't change the past, but we can change what is happening today. What are the antagonisms of today? And Indian nations still exist. They're still dispossessed. The injustice is still alive in our historical continuity. There aren't colonial antagonisms in Britain like there are in America. There's no similar dynamic. There are national questions.
The funny thing is that with this logic, the logical extension of this is that empires should finish the job when they displace colonized people. That is the logic he's using, If you half-ass it, and there are still some of them around by the time people get woke to their causes, then you have an issue. But if they're all gone, yeah, then you can resign them to the dustbin of history, which is an interesting take for a lefty to take, I suppose. But the argument here isn't really being addressed, though. The only point that I'm making is that the idea that, like, America belongs to the natives is at once incredibly reductive and outright offensive, I think, to native groups. America was split up among hundreds of tribes. The idea that, like, oh, well, you're all, I don't know, dude, you're all, like, kind of native looking to me, whatever, dude, it's all yours, I guess, would be as offensive as, like, saying that an African-American here in America has, like, a shared cultural history in all of Africa. That's basically what you're doing. You could, like, walk like, hey, dude, are you, like, connected to your African heritage? And this guy whose family has been in America for 250 years, not of their own volition, but still, looks at you and says, what? And you're like, yeah, dude, like, Africa, like, do you, like, know much about your African heritage? Like, it's like, we would feel very comfortable calling that kind of racist, right? So I don't know why we do this essentialization with the native groups.
Questions, like I just said, and go for it. All right, but there's no real colonial dynamic. This is Britain, by the way. Those questions ended many centuries ago. That's why Indian land back is a thing, but Iceni land back is not a thing.
But I'm
That's why the plantation of Ulster is still a very touchy subject, but the Dononii question is not. One thing I did do wrong in my video was I incorrectly made out that Native Americans are all of one nation. My bad, I should have said nations. Of course, I know that American Indians are all of different tribes. What this graphic is trying to showcase is, when it comes to effects, when it comes to how the dominant power views them, they're treated as Indian. Is there not a shared experience felt by all Indian nations?
You know, when people like Badmouth say my bad and just like move on from it, this is why I don't really trust them, you know? They make these mistakes and they give the impression that they've moved on from it, but I mean, in reality, I don't think they've really reflected on it.
There cannot be an indigenous camp unless there is a colonizer. I don't say that I'm indigenous to England, do I? You see how weird that sounds? Some far-right people like to say stuff like decolonize Europe from all these, migrants and whatnot. And can you not see how this is just so obviously false compared with...
You could do that if you wanted to. Yeah. If your family could have been born in England like 2,000 years ago or something, right? Wait, how long ago did okay, so there were it was the Saxons and the Romans, right? Well, it's possible that your lineage has been in England for like a really, really long time. If you want to say you're indigenous to England, I think that's totally fine. First it was the Celts. Okay, gotcha. But like, you could trace that back to England an incredibly long time, right? Same with a ton of places, right? What we consider to be indigeneity is kind of like a blend between the indigenous colonizer relationship and also an actual description of how far back you can trace your lineage in a culture. I don't know if there's like a right answer to that necessarily. Most people use the term indigenous exclusively in reference to groups that are being oppressed by colonizer groups, usually because we tend to think of it as how would I say it? I guess sort of like a contrast against the like colonial rule, more so than anything else. But you could agree that people are indigenous before there are colonizers, right? Or to put it another way, chat, if we were to move back in time 500 years and address native peoples in America in general, we would still call them indigenous, wouldn't we? Before there was any European colonization? Probably, right? I mean, I think I would. That makes sense to me, at least. Even before there was a direct, like, colonizer relationship. So it seems to me like it's kind of a blend of these ideas. Or maybe we're ascribing modern distinctions historically. I don't really know. I don't think there's I think it's kind of... Is it incredibly conceited of me to feel like just these tiny dalliances that I engage in with chat demonstrate a much more nuanced understanding of these issues than I ever get in these videos? I feel like it's very conceited, but I also think that it's completely true. Because I feel like every time we have these conversations or look at these videos, it's like they're very smugly demonstrating 101 stuff, like very smugly. Like, yeah, well, when people are racist against you and you're white, there's not like a system backing it up, man. It's like, yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Of America. The funny thing about this is, from some of the things I've seen over the past few days, some people get the impression that I'm some kind of white knight for black people. And the general point is I'm not obsessed with it, like many folks come across as. This same obsession that I see, I can only really compare it to back when anti-feminists in the day were obsessed with this archetype of the angry misandrist. Now, when you go back and look at a lot of that stuff and all the points made by Sarkeesian and Watanabe and Watson, they're fairly tame. Because all this was just a load of pedantic nitpickery at the time. It was spurred on by greater profits and clout. You know, there was a TikTok some time ago.
I like, his defense, to get this right, is that he's Big Red and I'm Sargon, and that makes me dumb. I guess that's where we are now. We've got the reversal. Now I'm Sargon.
Where some teenager was literally like,
right?
You know, white people, just so you're aware, you enslaved my people. And there was some hard, squatty guy who responded by going, oh, just so you know, my family's from Scandinavia. I never lived in America. I didn't enslave anyone. Then why are you so angry then? Why are you so obsessed? Are people of color coming to kill you?
Well, wait, hold on. It is kind of weird, champ, to yell at a white person, you enslaved my people. Isn't that a little weird? I don't know. I feel like well, it is semantically and technically incorrect. Unless that's a very old white person you're yelling at, or there's some kind of human trafficker, and your family... you know what? You can say that when you're the guy from Taken, and you meet the bad guy who stole your daughter, right? Right? Wasn't she being, like, slave kidnapped or whatever? It's like, you enslaved my family. And it happened like 6 days ago. I guess, sure. So you've got that, I guess.
Get a grip. Same thing with this NoName's woke segregationism. It's not. Segregation was literally, you are nothing. You're an underclass. You're not even fully human. You're a slave with extra privileges. NoName's literally just saying, stop being Steve Buscemi. You know, how do you do, fellow blacks? Actually sort yourself out. Work in your group.
Oh, I'm glad we've learned that you can't say something is segregationist unless there's literally an apartheid. This is a deliberately bad faith reading, I think. When I say woke segregation, I'm saying that you're engaging in the same logic as segregationists, just from a progressive perspective, not you have literally built a system of apartheid and manufactured reverse Jim Crow laws. It's a bit different there. What is he complaining about? It's kind of hard to tell, but I'm enjoying the ride.
Get rid of the racism inherent to your groups, and there is a lot of racism. Believe me, this isn't a controversial opinion.
No.
It's only controversial because you've accepted a very diluted, superficial view of racism that suits your interests.
Keep in mind, that's not exactly what they said, though. What the NoName tweet said was, don't try... What was it? Like, don't talk about racism with black people till you've, like, dealt with it in white communities or something like that. Essentially, it was like, stick to your own kind, which is kind of a weird thing to say, I think. I don't know if that advances any cause outside of... NoName is the person who stopped a concert or stopped doing concerts because she didn't like there were too many white people in the audience, right? That is what NoName did, right? I'm not misremembering that. Yeah, something tells me that she might, there might be something going on under the surface that is not just a highly principled, you know, advocacy for dealing with racism. Wait, I'm not misremembering that, right? Hold on, wait. NoName cancel concert white people. This did happen, right? Oh, yeah. Jesus. NoName may quit music, says she won't perform for mostly white audiences. Okay. I refuse to keep making music and putting it online for free for people who won't support me. Now, how does she know that they won't support her because of their skin color? See, this is, again, this is reactionary thinking right here. This isn't progressivism in like an antagonistic, sort yourself out kind of way. It's just reactionary from the other side. Also, if they're showing up to the concerts, they're paying you with their money, which supports you. Little odd. In November 28th, NoName tweeted a picture of a woman in clown makeup. The caption read, "Me consistently creating content that is primarily consumed by a white audience who would rather shit on me than challenge their liberalism because somehow liking Lizzo's music absolves them of racist tendencies." This is very strange to me, you know? Like, have you done polling on your audience, or did you just get annoyed by white people on Twitter and then just decided your audience was at fault? I guarantee you that's what happened, by the way. She doesn't have polling data on her audience's political beliefs. She saw a couple of, like, people who maybe are in her community and are white being, like, weird, and she was like, tired of these whiteys. It's like, okay. A little weird. A little strange. When I go to work, thousands of white people scream the N-word at me. Are these the people supporting you? Like, do people pay money for the tickets for the concerts to go and shout the N-word? If that's the case, that's an extremely dedicated... What do we mean thousands of people on Twitter? I don't know what this means. Anyway, I just think she's being a little sussy, okay? Does she have the N-word in her songs? Oh no, what if they're just singing along? Oh no, they're just singing along! Oh my god. She's talking about them singing lyrics, that's pretty obvious. Dude, if you're going to quit performing for white people because white people are singing along and your songs have the N-word, so they say the... Alright, okay, whatever. You can have fun. Okay. Have fun. Ah. Alright. Come on, let's move it along.
Of course, a lot of us don't really want to talk about this stuff because we're scared of being ostracized. Like I've said, the stuff I've seen over the past few days, oh, you're
Hold on. So we as black people are responsible for white people saying the word Vaush? But if you're a black musician and you're offended by people saying the N-word, and by saying the N-word, I mean potentially mouthing it along from the audience while you sing it, I just feel like that's a very silly thing to get upset over. Don't get me started on that fucking clip. What was that musician who brought the white woman up on stage? Does anyone have a clip? Oh, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. 1 second. Oh god.
Sing like the whole city. What's up?
Oh no.
Wait. Am I not cool enough for you? What's up, bro?
Oh no!
What's up?
My boy Rohan kind of knew the rules a little bit.
Will's just really cool, bro. You have to work with
You gotta bleep one single word though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I do it?
Yeah, you did it.
I'm so sorry. Oh my god.
Should she stay up here, y'all?
No, please keep me up here. I got you. I'll try my hardest. I'm used to singing it like a Ronan.
You sure?
I swear.
You got it?
I promise.
That's it.
Sorry about that.
Clips, all got along. They probably got me down by the end of the song.
The DMC Arena. God, that's funny every time. Holy shit! This is why, folks, once you... Listen, The Office is not enough, okay? When you get real cringe comedies in the real world, okay? Vaush put emphasis on... Yeah, I feel like this girl was like a daredevil because she was probably thinking they want me to mutter the word, but I'm gonna prove to them how hood I am by screaming the N-word louder than every other word in the fucking song. I will prove to them how fearless I am. God damn. I lost it. What, am I not cool enough for you? Yeah. God damn, that's so fucking funny. Holy shit. Did she have to say it so loud? It was the leap of faith, right? And turns out there was nothing there. She just kind of fell into a canyon. This is further complicated by other rappers bringing fans on stage and explicitly encouraging them to rap the N-word. True, it does get a little complicated, right? Because there are black people who find it fucking hilarious when white people awkwardly stammer out the N-word while trying to, like, sing or whatever. There are rappers and fucking Samuel L. Jacksons who feel that way. So so there's some ambiguity there. But it's Kendrick. I don't know Kendrick's specific positions on this or whatever. Listen, okay, let's not forget what the power dynamic here is, okay? The power dynamic is in favor of Kendrick Lamar, okay? It's literally his stage. It does feel a bit weird that he would bring a white person on for that song. Like, are you like baiting? Like, you like fishing? You're like throwing the reel into the audience and being like, yeah, we're gonna have a good time with you. Listen, What I'm saying is, this is exactly like Squid Game. That's what I'm saying. Just move along. What are we even talking about?
White knight for the black man. Oh, you'll be the most enlightened on the mass grave? Wow.
True.
Wow, okay, this is coming from so-called leftists. Okay, here's the big one. Nation of Islam.
Wait, you can't respond to that. Wait, you need to respond to that. Hold on. Okay, he doesn't want to, so whatever. Yeah.
From so-called leftists. Okay, here's the big one. Nation of Islam. What more shall I say?
Oh,
Sexist, homophobic, conspiratorial, opportunistic, anti-Semitic, occult? Yep, all true. All true.
He didn't know that.
I denounce all of
he didn't know that before this, did he? He just knew all he'd seen was a big Twitter master post on how the Nation of Islam is better than white liberals or whatever. And he never he heard they're problematic. Did he know? Is he gonna address the murder of Malcolm X thing?
All of that. Okay? You can have that discussion from that standpoint. Go for it. You're probably right. And I'd agree with you. It is a problem. All these things are problems. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what I say, does it? The worst reactionary black nationalism serves black people's self-determination. The best reactionary white nationalism serves white supremacy. Is that...
Huh. So he's going to paint the Nation of Islam that killed Malcolm X, that believes Jews control the world, as serves black self-determination. Wow, that's crazy. This is borderline Nazi apologia. The worst reactionary black nationalism serves black No, they do a lot more than that. If you want to define what the Nation of Islam does as black determination, then you could just as easily define what the Ku Klux Klan does as serves white self-determination. If you want to be that dishonest, I mean, hey, if we want to engage in apologia for, extremist far-right groups, then sure. But this only affirms my position that he is, well, I guess, very determined to not look like a reactionary white liberal. And secondly, that he just literally does not care about anything other than signaling opposition to white people. Also, the Nation of Islam doesn't even serve black self-determination. They're terrible at that. They're horrible at that. Because they're essentially a Nazi org. Why would they... How do they serve black self-determination? They don't do it. They can't do it. They worked with the KKK. They've never done that.
Too difficult for people to understand. But no, of course, Nation of Islam bad. Haha, own next. I urge you.
I genuinely do think this should be considered morally equivalent to Nazi apologia. If all he has to say about Nation of Islam is that the worst Nation of Islam is it serving black self-determination? I mean, if we really want, we can go over Luis Farrakhan, the head of Nation of Islam. Oh, thank you.
The satanic Jews.
This is guys, just can we hold on, wait. I need to juxtapose this with the text that there we go. Serves black self-determination. There we go. This is so this is in Bad Mouse's words.
They control everything and mostly everybody.
Very good. Very good for black
the
self-determination.
Chosen of God.
This is great.
You are the chosen of Satan.
Thank you, Bad
I'm
Mouse.
talking about the wicked ones in the Jewish community that run America, run the government, run the world.
I can feel
own the banks,
black people
own
being made freer by the second.
The means of communication. They are my enemies.
Huh. Help us fight hate. And by hate, of course, what the ADL means is people who don't like Luis Farrakhan. Thank you, Bad Mouse. If we wanted to, I could just bring this segment to a screeching halt and spend the next 2 hours going over everything wrong with the Nation of Islam. But I feel like the point's pretty obvious, so...
White nationalism serves white supremacy. Is that too difficult for people to understand? But no, of course, Nation of Islam bad. Haha, own next.
True.
I urge you.
That is my
Go
argument.
back to that video. Show me any time where I actually defended the Nation of Islam.
Oh my god.
On the same point, this one. Oof.
Oh my god. He's actually doing the alt-right thing. He's literally doing it right now. Dude, I didn't say anything good about the Nation of Islam. I just described it summarily as... This would be like summarily describing Nazi Germany as like an economic like boon to the... It'd be like, oh, the Nazi party? Well, for whatever you can say about them, haha, whatever, dude, the economy went up. Like, it's your... Well, it feels like you're defending them a little bit, you know?
This one is very familiar to me. The he was bad until his final year argument. Yeah, I can't say that I'm not guilty of that one. Tell me again, really, when we go through all this, tell me again that we're not just taking on black people and black people's fought once it just becomes ever so slightly placable to white audiences. Okay, Malcolm X is one. Don't even get me started.
He's actually invalidating the positions Malcolm X held when he died because it's woker for him to defend him in his Nation of Islam phase. He's like, I don't know, dude. You're the one invalidating the last beliefs that he held. The position he held at the end of his life when he had the most time to reflect on everything that he believed in.
On the Black Panther Party. Anybody can say that they love the Black Panther Party these days.
I love the Black Panther Party.
It has gone from being the, vanguard of the black nation for socialism into the party of Rainbow Coalition and Free Breakfast. That's literally it. What a bastardization of such a great movement for black people,
I don't even know what point he's trying to make.
Rainbow Coalition and Free Breakfast. Walter Jr. would be proud. This is a good comment, because, of course, black people are not indigenous either, right? Well, within colonial discourse, I believe that they fit into the category of arrivant. That's people who are forced to come because of sanctions by that country, war by that country, being brought against their will by that country, those sort of things. So black, Latin, Iraqi, etc.
Latin.
Although, there's some debate, you can look into that. But that is something that is overlooked in this common settler indigenous binary. And some people might say, oh, well, not all black people came against their will. It doesn't matter. How does African culture in America manifest itself in comparison to white culture? How does African culture in America...
I'm glad he added this. Really glad he added this. That really saved him there. African culture. I don't know, a billion people, like 50 trillion fucking countries. Yeah, almost. He's a crafty one. He saved himself from that one,
manifest itself in comparison to white culture. Why is that? Does centuries of oppression have something to do with it? I don't think...
Do Irish and Italians count as arrivants? Well, the funny thing is that even the original colonial groups would have also kind of fit into arrivants sometimes. You guys do know that a lot of early colonial types were farmers who came over either on draft. There were people who brought over in indentured servitude, soldiers serving tours of duty they had no control over, and sometimes poverty forced people into abstract land plots that were just sort of vaguely promised to them in colonial territories. They didn't go over there to reinforce the will of the European or whatever. It's if the definition of arrivant only applies to people who were literally kidnapped and brought over, then I guess that wouldn't really then it wouldn't really apply. But if it's a little broader than that, yeah, I don't know.
I think I'd have to go over this one either, but apparently so. Vaush isn't a pedophile or a defender. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that, all right? Here's the thing.
I do think you're a Nazi apologist, though. You've sold me on that one. You're making an argument. You're making it hard to see past that, man.
That you're overlooking. If your argument ends up with you having to reach that far, with all the very obvious other differences involved, then maybe you should rethink your stance and how literally leaning on this sonic meme all the time just absolves you of any further discussion. You can't really affect the distributors of what you consume, sure, but you can affect the content of what you consume, and that does make a real-world tangible difference.
The funny thing is that right now he's literally arguing my point. He's actually arguing my point right now, but he doesn't... All the pedophile memes were a way of baiting people into making the argument that you have a moral obligation to avoid consuming products that were made using unethical labor abroad. My argument was literally, yeah, we should avoid those. Not only should we avoid them, we should have laws enacted to punish people who go around standard supply chains to get those products. This is my position. The argument that I was making of this radical, there is no ethical consumption point was trying to bait people into distinguishing something in a way that would lead them to agree that the global economy is unethical. Time to be vegan? Nope.
You can watch the rest of his discussion there. You know, he just reaches and literally equivocates on any possible rung, not just that one, many other interviews. You know, oh, if someone was on the pavement homeless, would you impugn yourself for not giving them money? Owned. Next. This is what...
What? That's not even the same argument. That's a different... That's a different moral...
What happens when you're doing consistency for consistency's sake? Stop doing it. You're literally giving nothing of value. So
is this anti-intellectualism? I feel like it is. I was like rather than asking the question, he's like, well, this is dumb. Like, okay.
I'm not interested in debating, Vaush. No, I'm not. Look, if people are interested in having discussions, I'm going to have them. I'm not just going to not bother, you know, talking about this to anyone and say, no, case closed, I'm right, whatever. Okay, but I'm not going to waste my time with somebody who argues like this. Now, what about that James Baldwin?
Argues like this, he says as he puts up a philosophical quandary and then says, and then crosses it out and deletes it from the screen. Yeah. Yes, you're truly an intellectual titan, getting ready to engage in very good faith with my arguments. Fuck.
In debate, so to speak, because I knew that I would get people saying this. Okay, I was actually tempted to put words over the top of the speech, but I just felt it would ruin the whole flow of it. If your takeaway is, oh, it's a debate, Dave said debate is stupid, haha, oh, he said we need each other, Dave said we don't need each other, haha, you are proving the point. The speech is so much more than just a, oh, well, I guess the answer is an abstract, we need each other. Next, go and watch it. Watch it a few times. It took me quite a while to fully understand it. You know, James...
How many times is he going to keep doing this? I'm a white boy, but I tried really hard to listen to oppressed people. How many times is he going to do it? He's done it like 4 times this video. He did it so many times in the last video, too. He keeps doing this over and over. Guys, I'm so sorry for being white. Let me remind you at every possible juncture that I am extremely sorry for being white. Please don't be mad at me for being white.
Baldwin has this very sort of Shakespearean way of speaking, you know, and can be a little bit, you know, difficult to understand at first, but when you get it, it is poetry in motion. Is this a debate? Well, it might well be a debate. Oddly, though, hardly anyone seems to care who Baldwin's opponent is in this debate. They barely even remember him. They barely even listen to his side of it. Okay, it's mostly just James Baldwin. If anything, it's very...
Okay, if you haven't seen the first video, he cited a quote from Baldwin to argue that, like, white and black people should stay out of each other's business or something like that. And then we looked up Baldwin, and not only was that quote and him in general in favor of working together across racial lines, but everything about his life was advocating for it. So I don't know what he's trying to do right now. This is like scrambling backwards, I think. But like, yeah, he was based and he was pro-intersectionality and he was very, very, very much in favor of working together to build a better world. But he like cited him as an example of the opposite? I don't know.
Very much a speech made 50 years ago prior to, as I said, this modern obsession with internet debate culture. What? But heavens no, you know, of course it's a debate. These two things are ontologically the exact same thing as each other. Ha, owned.
What?
Next. When someone's trying to make a point, right, stop immediately scanning around for some cherry-picked gotcha all of the time. Because when you do that...
It wasn't a cherry-picked gotcha. It was his entire history. And I like how you're saying, I don't know who Baldwin is, when you cited him as an example for a position that he held the opposite of. We're not nitpicking for a gotcha. His whole life is the gotcha. I could have shown a picture of his face and it would have been a gotcha. You were so antithetical. You were so directly opposite of everything that he believed. The argument you were making was so antithetical to what he stood for that I probably could have picked any random paragraph out of any book he's ever written, read it out loud, and it would have been a gotcha. You don't have to nitpick for that. I could have thrown darts at the board blind. And it's like, Ian doesn't know who Baldwin is while he pulled this shit, you know?
The meat of your analysis is really no better than a Thunderfoot video.
Oh my god. Dude, you're just like Thunderfoot when I use a guy to support an argument and then you point out that every single thing he ever did, said, and believed was opposite to that argument. I don't know. Hey, doesn't it sound like Badmouth just ignores the words of people of color as soon as they stop aligning with whatever preconceived biases he has? When Malcolm X leaves the org that later ends up killing him, oh, well, invalid, even though those are the last things that he believed, so he would have had time to reflect on all the stuff he believed beforehand. Baldwin's entire life is dedicated to fighting against the ideas that Badmouth believes in. Oh, well, nah, that doesn't count, actually. For some reason. you're like Thunderfoot for pointing that out.
Recently, Double Dragon Neon in 2012 reintroduced new gamers to this regressive crap yet again, this time in full HD.
Booby.
Without mentioning that the game Double Dragon Neon ends like this.
One day to antagonize you, Billy and Jimmy!
What?
Oh, right in the balls.
The pattern of presenting women as fundamentally weak, ineffective, or ultimately incapable.
This is the video I made.
Feminism debunked, people. Now, finally, I got...
Thank you. That is exactly like what I did. Thank you.
A lot of these comments. VDS, which if you don't know stands for Vaush Derangement Syndrome. Basically, what people say to folks who have a dislike of Vaush, petty...
Demon Mama watched this video and said Bad Mouse is stuck in 2016 memes and compared to Kraut. Dude, that's true. Why are all of Bad Mouse's references so out of date? He keeps bringing up 2016 era talking points. I don't think about Thunderfoot anymore. Why? Yeah, Big Red got brought up as well?
Or Steel. Now, look, if you were to say that you found someone who was apparently always correct, who's basically infallible, whose detractors are always uncharitable, I would say you were lying. You'd expect someone to make errors, okay, to be wrong sometimes. But in the Vaushverse, everything is forgivable, except the people he's talking to. They're always wrong. If you are accusing all those who dislike Vaush many times very validly, and just throw them into this pathology, that you can just write them off, then you are literally engaging in cult behavior. I'm not going to lie. And frankly, you could easily argue that the responses that I've seen to all this discussion, you know,
He doesn't know my community is literally constantly criticizing every single thing out of my mouth, and anytime I express any position on this stream more controversial than trans rights, chat fucking dogpiles me, and I have to fight against them. I feel like the fucking Doom guy on the cover of Doom. Every time I express my opinion on something, I have to fucking wade my way through a demonic horde of chatters trying to club me over the head with their stupid fucking arguments. That's... Oh, God.
You could consider this minoritized derangement syndrome.
MD?
Because it's literally the same sanctimonious pearl-clutching at any possible criticism that you claim. If you throw the ball at me, or Lua, or John the Duncan, with genocide supporter or defender of the Nation of Islam, you are literally just engaging in that bile.
You literally... Come on. Really? You're in this video? You're gonna... This video defended the Nation of Islam far more than the first video. This video was very... The previous video was like a 4 out of 10 on defending Nation of Islam. This one's like a solid like 8.5, describing them as nothing more than a pro-black rights group. That's... Alright.
For which you criticize others of doing to you and your sacred cows. Now, for all those not-so-great comments that I got, I did get this comment by Jack Neeson, and this is an essay by Lorenzo Irwin called The Progressive Plantation. He's an ex-Panther, by the way, and I must say, when I was reading this, I wish I'd been shown this before, because it is damning. It is damning. I honestly think that every white socialist needs to read this.
It's so fucking embarrassing listening to him. Holy shit, dude. Dude, where's that photo of those white people who went to the plantation to pick cotton while black people whipped them? And MLK is smiling off in the skybox. Does anyone have that photo? Can we do a crowdfund so that Bad Mouse can finally get all of his insecurities and pathologies worked out in one of these? He is every chance he gets, he is obsessed with apologizing for being white. Holy fuck. I think every white person should. Here we go. There we go. Bad Mouse? Listen up, Bad Mouse. I know that you might be uncomfortable with this on first hearing, but that's just your white fragility showing, okay? What you need to do, alright, is look past that and think of this probably black guy. I don't know, okay? He seems to be okay with what's going on. You wouldn't want to invalidate his feelings, would you? So go on over there. Have a good time. You know, I'm sure they don't do it that hard because it's like kind of a tourist experience, you know? Yeah, you could always, yeah, just apologize the whole time, you know, like, where was that? Hold on, I'm sorry for being white. Isn't there were those people with the sandwich boards? Here we go. Good enough. Bad Mouse, I've got a content suggestion for you. Okay? Boy, do I have an idea for you, okay? You'll have to come to the States, though. Do you live in the States? I feel like everyone lives in the States, okay? What you need to do, okay, we need to bring your ass over to Oakland, like those fucking people from the Channel 5 video, and we need to find you some black people to apologize to, okay? And then when they act really weird about it and say you have nothing to apologize for, accuse them of being pick-me's and find another one. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a real good one. Oh, and then when they say you're being weird, show them the Baldwin video, and when they act confused, tell them that they're Thunderfoot and then run away. Alright.
I cannot recommend this enough. Literally everything I've been thinking about, I've been talking about Ian, it's here. If you've any misunderstandings, if you still don't get the point at hand after going over this, if you still deny it, if you still think it's bad optics, I don't know what to say, but honestly,
what
give it a read.
position does
The
this
Progressive
book
Plantation
advocate
by
for?
Lorenzo Camboa Irvin. That's all for now, folks. I don't really want to take any more time.
Wait, sorry, what position is this book supposed to illuminate? Does he think I don't think racism exists inside of white radical social change groups? I'm arguing against it right now in the form of Bad Mouse making this shitty video. What do you want from me? Come on.
More space up on this topic. See ya.
Nice. Great content as always. Hey, that's my video. What's up? Vaush's response really exposed how non-sincere he is to the matter. I did show up drunk, so I guess I can't. Simple and quicker response to Vaush. A white person who's unapologetic and proud of saying the N-word should not scold black people. So, wait, what did I say? I was when have I ever employed these terms to describe my use of the N-word? Oh. Okay, I did it one time. That's right. Sorry, I forget the whole tactical meme is more of a big deal to other people.